this question that you guys know and everybody who lives in the big city knows, like, why is it there are so many fabulous women who can't find a decent guy?
Welcome back to another episode of Girls Gotta Eat.
Welcome back.
We haven't given a weather update in a while.
I was thinking that.
Do you want to do it? I was thinking that. I'm not going to do it.
Anyway, thanks to our partners. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think it's like 37 and sunny, not windy. I fucking hate wind.
Like in the
wind
winter
is the worst. I hate a wind chill.
It's sunny at least.
I love a sunny winter day.
It's New York. I hate when people talk to me about the weather in New York. They're like, it's cold. I'm like, have you lived here before?
I love talking about the weather. People I just love dumb small talk about the weather.
Do you?
Because it connects us all. Like I talk to the doorman about it all the time. What else do we have to talk about?
I'll talk to your doorman about anything. I stopped in today. I was like, how's your New Year's? What'd you do? Okay. What's happening first? Do you want to tell me your story? You have a Christmas story you haven't told me.
A Christmas story?
Christmas story. Okay. I want to tell you about, let's go in chronological order because I want to tell you about my week, but I want to hear about the Christmas stuff first.
This is just a funny thing that I've been meaning to tell you. So we all know that I'm not dating guys in their 20s anymore. Mm-hmm. This was probably one of the last interactions I had with a guy that was in his 20s. This was
one of the last interactions.
That's a lie. I went on a date with one after this, but this was just like a funny dating app exchange that happened on Christmas Day. You know, the holidays are always lit on the apps.
Yeah, because you think that nobody's going to be on there, but everyone's just at home ignoring their families on the dating apps.
Yes. So this guy liked me on Hinge and he was like 27 and he did look really young, not like too young, not like creepy young, but he did look young, but he also looked a little like Nick Robinson, who is the actor from A Teacher. And I was like,
that is exactly what I thought you were going to say.
It was fresh in my mind. And I was like, I'll do it. And I did not do it. So I was like, whatever. I was kind of bored too. So I was talking to this guy and I soon realized he was asking me some kind of interesting questions like, so what brings you on the apps? I'm like, I don't know. Like they were invented. Like, what do you mean? I've been on here for a while. Like,
what is he? You think he was like, he wanted you to say like, I broke up with somebody a week ago.
So come to find out after chatting a little bit that he just got on the apps for like the first time at 27.
Okay.
And he's like, so what are they like? Have you gone out with anybody? And I started to be like, oh my gosh, this actually is like a kid. And like, I'm not signing up to be a teacher for somebody that's
you would role play a little bit.
Getting into online dating for the first time. Like he literally was like, have you gone on any dates? And I was like, I've gone on a couple. And he said, oh, nice. How have they gone? The guys weren't freaks, right? Haha. Like my biggest fear is being catfished. And I'm like, whoa. This is just not.
Is he gay?
And so I was just like, they've gone well. I have yet to be catfished. And then I was like, I'm not going to talk to this guy anymore. His age just started to be like feel very extreme.
He seems very earnest.
It was super earnest. And I feel like he was just like, knows was a lot older and was like pumping me for information. It started to feel like a dynamic I didn't want to be a part of.
You didn't want to role play the teacher stuff? You're like, I didn't. Can I teach you arithmetic?
I know, even though he kind of looked like
Pythagorean theorem.
Like Eric. Eric.
Like Eric.
So I wrote like, I've never been catfished. And he wrote like, oh, good to hear a success story. And then I got to read you this. This threw me off. Haha, honestly, everyone has been very chill that I'm not worried about it. I feel like maybe the guys are a little more crazy though. Like I have a bunch of friends who have been offered a menage a trois.
Ashley, here's my theory. He's 12. I have not used that phrase since I heard it in a song and I was 12 and I told everyone who would listen.
He's not 12. He's a boomer. Like, I feel like I got catfished by a boomer. Okay, who has said menage a trois since threesome became a normal word?
Do you know what I mean? Like when you were 12, you heard that song like voulez-vous coucher, and then you just like looked up what it meant, or your mom told you, and then you told everybody you knew what it meant, and I was 12.
But also, I feel like the word is threesome. Like the word is threesome. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why you don't say menage a trois. It's not English for one, it's French, and we're English people, English speaking people, and the word is threesome.
Also, listen, if I'm 5 sentences into an interaction with a person and threesomes have come up, we've taken the wrong turn.
What?
But menage a trois.
What millennial, younger millennial, I think 27 still millennial, what millennial has ever said menage a trois?
Do you think he was kidding? No, you know, I know it's because he's so earnest and like sweet. There's no way that was kidding.
But then it was just so funny because I was like, I'm being catfished by, you're right, a 12-year-old or a 57-year-old.
And you're right. Somebody does know what a
then
threesome is.
I just looked back. He did unmatch me. So like, I feel like he was like, my ruse is going too far. I said menage a trois, I'm caught.
I showed it to a friend and the friend was like, bro, people don't say that.
Unmatch.
Just unmatch her. People don't say that anymore.
Unmatch her, she's going to find you
I
out.
feel like on dating apps, not that I'm ever on them, I feel like I'm like pretty open to like different people have like different turns of phrases that I'm fine with. Even like spelling errors, menage a trois for this reason I'm out.
Like, yes, I'm so glad you feel me on how absurd it was. Like, it shook me up a minute. I was like, what?
That person is never going to tell you to choke on their dick. Like, that person's just too nice to talk dirty talk. He's not going to like eat you out the way you want.
No. But anyway, so I got catfished. That's why I'm
very
not dating
funny.
guys in their 20s anymore. I'm still sticking to it one weekend.
Well, that guy's either 12 or 52. You're right. He's not in his 20s.
And allegedly, I have a date coming up. We'll see. With a 39-year-old.
He's very hot. He has salt and pepper hair. He's 39. He's hot.
He looks like Anthony Bourdain.
Also, I matched with him. I'm just kidding.
What?
I'm fucking with you.
God, do we just
but I did. I told you the other day that I might have matched them, and you were like, "We need to sync up our matches."
We do need to sync up our matches.
because our ages are aligned now.
I know. I know that one time I was like, did you match with a Nick?
Well, I'm glad that you brought
I don't
up Hinge.
believe you. I think you did.
No, I don't know. Aren't
You're
we all
blushing.
named Nick?
No, this guy is a different
I'm not blushing.
name.
I'm glowing. We're going to talk about why.
Okay. All right.
It's New Year. I'm back on my bullshit. I've had like a on my bullshit 24 hours. I worked out. I started a skincare routine. Hear me out. Hear me out about my skincare routine. I did one face mask last night. And then I put some collagen lotion on my face. Is that a skincare
That's
routine?
huge.
Is that a skincare routine?
Yes. This is why Rayna can't do the Rory read.
You looked at me the other day and said, you were like, that's really bad for your skin. And you
Rayna,
said it so serious. And I was like, I'm an adult, bitch. Get out of here. But then I was like, maybe I should do something
Like
nice.
I was like, put some sunscreen on.
yeah, you were like, do something nice for your skin.
Yeah.
So I did. I put some collagen under my eyes.
Okay.
Tighten that shit up. I'm going to go home. I'm going to cook my lentil detox soup. And I'm very excited to cook soup because you and your mom sent me one of the sweetest, you guys are like a whole household of thoughtful gifts. So you, actually, we'll put it on our Instagram. We should put it on our Instagram. You sent me a really beautiful custom Girls Gotta Eat painting. And then you and your mom got me I had to Google what this was called because I thought there'd be like a nice name for it. It's just a soup spoon rest.
Yes. And the custom artwork I got you was from Jeremy Brown. He is someone I know. He's based out of Atlanta. Check him out on Instagram. Artist Jeremy Brown. His stuff is incredible. And my mom and I were just talking about your soup making and what you could use that you don't already have. And my mom came up with that because the spoon rest is like such a thing that like I don't have one, but I always grew up, my mom had one on the stove.
Yeah, moms have them. And I never had one. I've been thinking for a long time I need it. And you got me a custom one that says vibes only.
I know.
Which
It's
is so special.
The spoon rest is like, we found it on Etsy. It's like stamped and it says vibes only.
It's really special. And so thank you very much. I love it so much.
You didn't get the other thing yet?
I didn't.
Ugh.
My dorm had a
I'm
piece
so
of
mad
shit.
you don't know what the other thing is because it goes with that. And it's like, you better get it. I'm pissed.
I will. You know that they just like gave me whatever packages they felt like finding today. I'll get them.
But it says
on my way
delivered to
in.
customer. That makes me think someone stole in your building. But your best friends are there in your building. Just start asking around.
I am best friends with my whole building. I like sent out the alert last night. I'm like, I'm around this week if anybody wants to hang out.
Oh my God.
But no, I'm back on my bullshit and I'm gonna get on the apps because so many people watched my Instagram story yesterday and told me that I was glowing, like so many. And I was like, it's all the cum in my system. And I think that you can just it's not just it's orgasms. I've been having a lot of orgasms lately.
Yeah.
Well, also the cum. But just to clarify, because like people were like, you spent this whole week with this guy last week. You're getting on the dating apps. That's not somebody who's gonna be like a long-term partner to me. It's somebody who I like a lot. We want very different things in life. I think it's just this very mature, like we care about each other.
Yeah.
We're not gonna have a future together. So like even if he heard this, I don't think he would be like, I can't believe she's saying that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad. I'm sure people are like, what happened? Yeah. This is a guy. We've talked about him a lot. He has a red aura. If you remember, I'm not a fan. But yeah, you guys reconnected, and yeah, it's nice. I mean, those situations are rare. I was in a situation like that with somebody until I discovered all his stuffed animals. Where you're like, I like this guy, I'm attracted to him, the sex is great, but we're just not going to be long term. But like, this is fun while it lasts.
It's so rare to feel like that, and it feels nice to feel like that, because everybody keeps being like, you know how many people said to me, are you guys in love? And I'm like, it was just a nice time with somebody that I like, and the sex was good, but it's like this mature thing where you're like, oh, we don't want the same stuff. And then like, I don't think about it. It doesn't like weigh on me really badly. And also, you don't like him because you don't see him as a long-term match for me, but he has never done anything like so terrible to me. He's fine.
It was on the horizon.
He was on notice.
Mystic Michaela said it was, and he was going to come for me. Okay. So
I'm getting back. I'm going to get on the apps.
Let me stop you right there.
I'm going to stop you
Our
right there.
guest today might make us feel differently. We have a guest we are so excited about. He's an author of a book we just read called Date-Onomics. He has a new book coming out. His name is Jon Birger. So guys, get ready for him. But he told us that he has a kind of negative outlook on the apps. And he just said that in our email correspondence with him. So I am very intrigued to hear what he has to say. So I'm curious if like, we'll both change our minds. I mean, but neither of us are like super excited about the apps. It's just kind of you do them because it's like all we really have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked for years about how like I would never use an app. I like to meet people in person. That's not the world we live in right now. I'm not going to bars. I'm not meeting people. I'm walking up to strangers. I'd like to have some love in my life. I really did enjoy being with somebody last week. Like we spent like 8 nights together. We were together for like such an intense period of time, and I realized like it's so nice to just have somebody that has to have sex with me and give me attention all the time.
Yeah,
but it's nice to have somebody around, and I enjoy it. And I would like to have that with somebody who I have a long-term future with. And so like, you got to do it on dating apps if you're going to do it.
Well, I'm curious to see what he says. I cannot wait because, you know my stance. It still holds that I've never gone on a second date from an app, and I have been dating a lot. I've been going on a lot of first dates, but I will say it's like someone could be like, well, wait, what about that one guy? You went on a second date with him, the guy that I said I just wanted to be friends with? Nope, he slid into my DM. So I still have yet to go on that second date from an app. It is not my preferred way to meet people, but I have been hitting them harder than ever and actually going out with guys safely outside. But I'm curious to see what he says because for like the world we live in now, I just can't wait. I'm like so juiced up to talk to him.
I told you last night.
Shortly.
It's the most excited I've been for an interview. You told me about this book. Ashley.
No.
Ashley called me and told me about this book.
But you know where I heard it?
Where?
Shan Booty. She said she was reading Date-Onomics. She said it really quickly
on our show.
Yeah, on our show because we were talking about moving to a place that will be better for you to date. And she said it really quickly and I picked up on it because I was like, oh, Date-Onomics. I just love that name, like the numbers game of dating. And so I picked this book up and I was shook by it. And matchmaker Maria, who we've had on our show, is quoted in it. And so some of the stuff she even said on our episode with her a couple years ago is in the book. And so she actually introduced us to him, and he just seems like an angel.
His correspondence has been my favorite correspondence with anybody. He's the kindest, most wonderful. You guys are going to meet him in a minute. But also, you told me about this book. It's been really eye-opening. I'm excited for him to just like talk me out of online dating. I'm always waiting to be talked out of it. I hate it.
It's so true. Okay.
But actually, before we get into Bridgerton, I just want to say somebody did reach out to us. We've been getting a lot of these lately. And she said that she comes from a very conservative household, very sexually conservative, and that we inspired her to buy Shan's book. And she was excited to like explore her sex side of herself. And we've been getting a lot of messages like that recently. And it makes me really happy to hear that you guys are sort of breaking free from what you think is shameful or not acceptable, and that our guests can help you explore that side of your life. And that really like warms my heart. It makes me so happy.
I love it too. Yeah. I don't have one to cite offhand, but I feel like we've been getting a lot of those emails lately. Like I think people ended the year and started the year with a lot of like, thank you for what you've done for me kind of emails to us. It's really nice. So thank you guys. We love you.
Yeah. The moment that we've been waiting for.
Oh my God. Okay. We teased it last week really briefly, but we are going to talk about Bridgerton, which is on Netflix. Spoilers ahead for sure if you haven't watched it.
Yeah, just give it a few minutes. Okay, so I'm glad that you made me watch it. I'm glad that you made me stick through it because my feeling was I did not like the first 5 episodes. But the last 3 episodes I loved.
Oh, I mean, I would never watch a show I didn't even like the first 10 minutes of.
But you loved it. So
How did you not like the first 5 episodes?
I just didn't like the plot. But the last 3 episodes I loved. I loved the cast. Also, I don't love like British aristocracy films. It's not something that I gravitate towards.
Yeah, I feel the same. Like I didn't watch, I never can remember the name of this. Oh, what is
Crown?
it? No, everybody loved it. Landing
Downton Abbey?
Downton, yeah, Abbey, what?
Downton Abbey.
Downton Abbey. How did we get there? I never watched that. Like, yeah, I don't know. It like to look at it, if I just saw like a photo of the show, I'd be like, that's not my kind of show. But I was so into it. I like loved the plot, like from moment one.
Do you want to tell people what the plot is? Do you think people have seen it?
Yeah, we mentioned it last week.
Okay.
It's really it's like Gossip Girl. There's this mysterious ghost writer that writes a gossip column about what's going on in this town. It takes place in London in the early 1800s, I think like 1815. And there's a queen and a king. And it's heavily based on this interracial community. The queen is black. She's married to a white king. And so there's no hierarchy based on your race. The lead actor is a black man who is so hot. Oh my God. The lead actress is a white woman. And I've seen some mixed reviews on how the show tackled race. But I mean, at the end of the day, it is still like a unique thing to see such diversity in a period piece that took place at that time.
I thought it was really, really unique and interesting.
Okay, the queen looked like Maya Rudolph, and I could not unsee it. I thought it was Maya Rudolph. I couldn't believe it wasn't Maya Rudolph.
I thought the Featherington woman was Elizabeth Banks.
You did? Oh, I can see that.
I had to look that up.
Okay.
And then also, do you know who the main character, the female lead, do you know what she was in also?
No.
She's in Younger. And she's the Irish girl.
Yeah. Oh my
that gets knocked
God.
up by Josh.
No.
Yes, that's her.
Yes, it is her.
Because I was like, who is this girl?
Oh my God. I did think she had a familiar face, but just like a familiar face for a Hollywood actress. Oh my God. Yes. Wow.
Yeah. So also one of our favorite shows.
That's crazy. Okay. What was your favorite scene?
My favorite scene. So we were talking about like, when are the sex scenes going to happen? Are there enough sex scenes? This one sex scene made up for the lack of sex scenes in the first couple episodes. They do a montage of her and the two main characters fucking like all over the place to Taylor Swift's Wildest Dreams set to violins.
Girl, I know, because I will tell you, the first time I realized they were using current music with the violins was Thank You Next. So it was one of the first balls, like first or second episode. And I was like, what is this tune? And then I realized it was Thank You Next. I just started singing it. Like I had to start singing it to realize what it was.
Me too.
And then it was Thank You Next. And the next song was like, I don't know if it was a Harry Styles. It was some like current song. And then
Girl Like You, the Maroon 5 song.
Maroon 5. And then yes, that like the Wildest Dreams was insane.
Incredible.
You're right. That was such a good scene.
It's one of my favorite scenes I've ever seen in a TV show ever. It was worth getting through the first 5 episodes for.
I mean, I'm obsessed with current music with like an orchestra.
It was incredible. Never seen it before.
Okay. My favorite scene was when she masturbated.
Were you like shook by like how out of place but amazing that was? Like, because you're like thinking like girls didn't know how to do that back then.
Well, when he was telling her like how to masturbate, that was one of the hottest things I've ever seen.
I almost masturbated.
I know, I did. I took a break. And then
on this couch?
No. Okay, so to play off of that, here's one of the things I just thought was so crazy. And again, I don't know, I don't study those time periods. I know it was like totally a different time, but I think it's so interesting, the difference between like the free women that can do whatever they want. And I guess some people would think of them as like pariahs of society or whatever. And then like the debutantes. I mean, just looking at it from the outside, like I would rather be the opera singer that gets to fuck whoever she wants than the girl who's engaged and doesn't know where babies come from. Like it is so nuts. Like the stark contrast between these women that get to do whatever they want and fuck whoever they want and live these lives where I guess they are like making their own money and they're like doing something they're passionate about, as opposed to these women in the high society that literally don't know what sex is.
It's so fascinating. I'm with you. I haven't studied that time period, but it feels accurate, right? Because she didn't know how babies were made. Like he kept pulling out. She didn't know like why.
But she didn't even know what sex was before even. I mean, before the day of her wedding, didn't know what sex was. Like, I don't know how normal that is. I guess that her mom just kept her in the dark, but like it's so nuts that like a kiss could ruin a woman's future, and these other women get to fuck whoever.
Why would anybody tell you though? Like even now it's awkward to talk to your daughters about sex. Like who would tell you about it? I don't know. But yeah, I would be the opera singer or the dressmaker. Okay. Do you want to talk about who Lady Whistledown is without revealing it?
I would. So I was shook because like I thought it was somebody else I don't need to get into it. I thought that I'd read a spoiler, but I didn't. It was all, I was shook when I found out who it was. Yeah.
I was shook.
I want to rewatch it almost, to go back and rewatch it from that lens.
I still think I would have been happier if the original person I thought who it was that person.
Well, you thought it was a dressmaker.
Yeah, I thought
which also, so did Eloise.
Mm-hmm.
So, which Eloise, love her. I love that they made a character like that.
I mean, she just
this, like
seems
progressive feminist.
I mean, that girl lives in Brooklyn. She's a writer. Like, that girl just like writes for like.
She went to Sarah Lawrence.
I loved her. I love that character.
Yeah.
But anyways, for me, yes, it took a little while to get super into it. I'm very glad that I waited it out. I love the last 3 episodes. It makes me very excited for season 2. Love the cast, love the music, love the sex scenes. I could have done with more of them, but I love the ones that they did.
Yeah, like I was just like, when are they gonna fuck?
I know.
Okay. Is there going to be another season, or was it just like, this was just, the way they wrapped it up, it felt to me like this was it. Like this was like Queen's Gambit, like a one-off series.
I didn't think they were going to reveal who Lady Whistledown was, and they do in the last like second of it. If they didn't reveal who that was, I would say for sure. But I kind of thought second season.
But I'm like, she got pregnant, like everything just got like tidied up. Like Marina, pregnant girl, went with that guy. Like they just like buttoned everything up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess we could Google this. Okay. And then actually I just did Google. Season 2 hasn't been confirmed yet, but it seems likely. I mean, yeah, due to the popularity, I just didn't know if it wasn't planned. Like some shows are just the one series.
Yeah, maybe you're right. I don't know. We'll see.
Someone emailed us in just one line, her email. She said the sideburns are ruining it for me.
That was the fashion back then. Listen, also as somebody who has some pretty prominent sideburns. No. I just shaved them off the other day. They were getting so long. They were like Orthodox Jew, like curly payas. They were very prominent. I shaved them down the other day. And then I was worried that guy I was with was going to like touch my face and like be like, did you shave this? But I did it anyways. Also speaking of shaving, I'm working on a landing strip. I just wanted to tell you, we're going to thank our partners get the episode, but I am going to work on a landing strip. It will probably take me 4 months to grow enough hair to do a landing strip.
I just don't understand landing strips.
I think it's sexy, but I don't know how far down the hair should grow. I don't know how thick the landing strip should be. Like, does it go all the way down the lips? Do you stop is there a hard stop at the top of the lips?
I just thought it was like on the top. But I don't get it. I don't understand them. It's not that there's hair in your, like, in the lips.
Yeah, but it's got to fade down into, like, it can't just be like a rectangle and then it cuts off at the top of your clit. I feel like that's what it looks
like. Like, every time I've seen one, I'm just like, that's so weird. No, I mean, no shade if you like it.
It feels naughty to me and I'm going to do it.
But what? It's just like a patch of hair.
It's just a patch of hair.
What is the point of this?
I don't know.
It's so weird to me. I don't understand it.
I want to have a little fashion down there.
Go for it.
I might shave a triangle and just see how that looks.
May as well.
And then
what else are you doing?
I'm not doing nothing. I'm literally doing nothing. I'm full of cum and orgasms and I'm glowing.
And you're going to get back in the apps, but probably not once we talk to John.
John, I mean, honestly, I'm a John stan. So.
Oh my gosh, such a John stan.
I'm very excited.
Are you ready?
I am ready. I might not be ready. Okay, I need to like get it all out because I'm gonna like fangirl so much. But we are really so excited to introduce our guest for today. He is an award-winning magazine writer, a former senior writer at both Fortune and Money Magazine, a dating expert, and the author of Date-Onomics: How Dating Became a Lopsided Numbers Game, plus the forthcoming book, Make Your Move: The New Science of Dating and Why Women Are in Charge. Please welcome to the show, Jon Berger.
Hey guys, I'm so glad Maria, our matchmaker friend, introduced us.
She matched us.
She matched exactly. Yeah, that's her job.
Well, we want to talk about obviously the book. Ashley and I are huge fans of Date-Onomics. Ashley read it. She told me about it. I immediately, within minutes, bought it. So we want you to talk about the book, obviously, and some of the themes. But maybe we just kick it off by talking about, how did you get into this? How did you become a quote unquote dating expert? What's your general background, and what gives you a background in writing about this?
Yeah, so as you're kind of alluding to, the first question I typically get is something along the lines of, how the fuck did a Fortune magazine writer who typically writes about super boring stuff like agriculture or oil and gas or mutual funds, like how did I end up writing a book about dating? And
well, that stuff is sexy, sexy stuff.
Well, I'm really into fracking, so
hot.
Yeah, it is. A lot of high pressure involved. Anyway, so All right, I'm going to stop with the oil and gas jokes right
I
there.
still don't understand fracking. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay.
That's a different podcast.
Yeah. So the backstory is that the editorial staff at Fortune was mostly women, and like it was impossible not to notice that most of the women at Fortune were kind of single and generally unhappily single. Like they had these dating stories and dating histories that seem really weird to me because they seem to have everything going for them dating wise. Whereas most of the men were like me and they were either married or involved in a relationship, and I think I can objectively say we had less going for us dating-wise than the women I worked with, and I couldn't figure out why dating seemed so much easier for men than it did women, and that was kind of the origin of Date-Onomics.
Okay, and this is based Fortune in New York City?
Fortune, yeah, New York City, yep.
Okay, so
The hellscape for women.
But you're right. I mean, so many women, all of our friends, there's a funny meme about it, but all of our friends, they have great jobs, hobbies, interests. They're amazing women in the city.
Yeah, although I will say, when I began the book, I assumed there was something unique about cities like New York. I figured that there was something about these great, metropolitan, sophisticated cities like New York or LA or Toronto or London. There was something about these cities that were attracting disproportionate numbers of women, and maybe it was the job market that was to blame. But it turned out that the gender imbalance in Montana is just as bad as it is in New York City. It's like it's worse in West Virginia than it is in California. So it wasn't. My theory going in was wrong. This was kind of an everywhere problem, not just a big city problem.
But the question was, why are there all these amazing women in their 30s that can't sort of seem to, quote unquote, figure out dating and love?
And obviously, like I'm sure their moms would tell you they suck at dating and that they need to go on a cruise or join a book club or something like that. And I think this is the experience that a lot of marriage-minded single women have, that everybody tells them they're going about things all wrong and that they're bad at it, and that, their mom says, well, our neighbor's, his daughter met her husband doing whatever, and you should do whatever too. But my take is it's not that men are really good at dating and women suck at dating. It's that, since the late 1990s, we've had about 1/3 more women than men graduate from college in the U.S. And it's actually not just in the U.S. It's basically every Western country. And obviously this wouldn't matter if we were more open-minded about whom we date and eventually marry. But at the same time that the college gender gap has been opening up, there's been a kind of a simultaneous increase in what academics call assortative mating, which is just a fancy way of saying college grads only want to date and marry other college grads. So, so what we've ended up with are these two very distinct dating pools, dating market, kind of a blue-collar world in which there are too many men and a white-collar world with too many women. And it's actually not just a statistical problem. There's all this social science that's been done on sex ratios showing that these lopsided sex ratios affect behavior. And I think that's what the women experience.
Can we start just a little bit with like an overview of where this is so prevalent? I mean, I think some of the fascinating things is that in the book is like that New York was such a hotbed of too many women, and then the West Coast was more men, and then it was like you looked at colleges too. Again, I guess we don't want to go into this so far.
There's a lot about New York there just because I live in New York and I had good stories to tell about New York. With California, the San Francisco Bay Area, Silicon Valley in particular, is like this one giant outlier in which there's more college-educated men than women, and it really it's interesting. It really shows up in the marriage and divorce data. The marriage rates for college grad women in Santa Clara County, which is kind of a loose proxy for Silicon Valley, the marriage rates are sky high, and the divorce rates are really low. So you can really see how which sex has the upper hand really affects kind of the outcomes.
I love that you also talked about college campuses and, so we have a lot of younger listeners. And so it's like, I love that you were like, no one's talking about this and these kids don't know this before they go off to college. And it really does alter the behavior of males and females. And we should know what we're going into.
Well, I mean, colleges were really how I kind of made the argument because
Sure. So you start with college.
Yeah, because the great thing, just from a research standpoint about college campuses, is that they're kind of self-contained dating pools. I mean, it's not perfect. I mean, obviously, if you go to college in New York or Boston, you might be dating people from outside your campus, but in generally speaking, people who go to Clemson are dating other people from Clemson, or people who go.
That's where I went.
I know.
Okay. And it wasn't in the book.
Yeah, it wasn't in the book. I'm sorry. Just like you guys checked me out, I did a little bit of research. So as you know, I'm sure most of the people at Clemson were dating other Clemson students. And people who go to Northwestern are dating other Northwestern kids. So it becomes kind of self-contained. And one of the things I did in the book is I did this study of about 40 colleges, and I ranked them by their sex ratios. And then I paired that data with how kids on campus described the dating culture at their schools. And the descriptions came courtesy of niche.com, which is this kind of college review website and for like kids applying to college. So I'm going to just read a few of these to you, and we can go into more detail if you want. So I'm going to start with the schools that are mostly male, like RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, which is in upstate New York. The comment about dating at RPI is most people are involved in relationships. Girls seem to become stuck up because they're in such a minority and they can afford to be very choosy. Georgia Tech, which is in Atlanta, 66% men. Tech is a fairly monogamous campus. For the most part, people like to be in relationships. And it's actually not just the overwhelmingly male tech schools, like Tufts University in suburban Boston. Tufts is 50-50. And here's the comment. Halfway through sophomore year, people begin to pair off and generally stay paired off through junior and senior year. University of Miami, also 50-50, has a reputation as a big party school, right? The comment about dating at the U is random hookups are common in the beginning, but after a few months or a year, relationships take over. Now, let's just park that in your brain, and let's compare that to the schools that are 60-40 women to men. And 60. I know your listeners get this, but 60-40 means 3 women for every 2 men. I think that's the way to think about it. So, New York University in Manhattan. Guys take advantage of the male to female ratio, and most have no plans of settling into a long-term relationship. University of Georgia in Athens. Hookups occur rampantly at the bar scene downtown. The walk of shame is pretty common for many students. Boston University, where actually my son is a student. Freshman year is a sexual explosion. There are girls to go around and around again. And BU is 62% women, 38% male. And probably like the saddest case study is Sarah Lawrence College.
I didn't even know that men could go there.
I know. This is the comment in the book, but we got to talk about my own experience interviewing Sarah Lawrence kids. But the comment from niche.com was the girl. And Sarah Lawrence is 75% women, which means 3 women for every, or 2 women for every 1 man, I think. Yeah. The girls complain about loneliness, the guys get more than they can handle, and mindless one-night stands are rampant.
Yeah.
So you can see how, as you kind of move down the spectrum or up the spectrum, depending upon your viewpoint, you can see how the mindset and how the behavior changes. And I as I said, I spent a chunk of time on the Sarah Lawrence campus interviewing kids there, and there was this one woman who told me that that her roommate had been hooking up with this guy, or her roommate had been hooking up with the guy for a week. And when he broke up with her, he actually used the word market. Like, the market for me is too good, which was kind of mind-blowing to her. And then there was actually a Sarah Lawrence guy I interviewed. And, just to give you some perspective, I mean, he wasn't bad looking, but he was no Steph Curry or anything like that. I mean, he kind of looked like.
I like that you picked Steph Curry.
I don't know. Like, I don't know who I'm supposed to pick, but yeah, like he.
We know what you mean.
Okay.
Not a Don Juan.
Yeah, no, he looked like he looked a little bit like John Lennon circa 1972, except even more malnourished, like that kind of thing. So he was telling me about like all of his escapades in his social life, and at one point I kind of just had to stop him, and I said, okay, his name was Jake, and I said, Jake, I'm just curious, of your current circle of friends at Sarah Lawrence, how many of the women have you had sex with? And he said, I'd say about 20.
That is wild.
And I had the exact same reaction. And he kind of caught himself, and he tried to, like, in his own way, backtrack a little bit and, like, take the edge off of it. And his comment to me was, well, just to be fair, that includes some threesomes and foursomes.
Okay. All right. So more people on the same night.
Right. So in his mind, that made it a little less, less crazy.
So, obviously you take this, I want to talk about colleges for a second and then, apply it to larger cities, but you talk about this imbalance in all these cities and you start to see these crazy patterns emerge of the way that men treat women, the way the women treat men, the way people look at themselves. What other findings did you find?
I mean, I do have some regrets about kind of the tone of Date-Onomics, and I kind of there were points in time where I was kind of just I might as well have been writing about the like mating habits of sea otters or something, or like I didn't have any skin.
That's okay. It's a data driven book.
But there were points where I was a little too glib about it. But I just interviewed all these women who were very marriage minded, and I don't assume everybody wants to get married and have kids, but there were just these women who were really, really struggling and couldn't figure out what they were doing wrong. And it wasn't just kind of cosmopolitan women in New York. I mean, I also interviewed Mormon women in Utah and ultra-Orthodox Jews in kind of, Long Island, New York. And for different reasons, there were gender imbalances in their communities. But the stories were pretty similar, that the guys would just kind of exploit the gender ratios and the women kind of paid the price.
I loved some of the studies you did in terms of the way that men act when there are less women, they're more protective. And when there's more women, they almost act like they're disposable. Yeah. And I think that what I loved was not loved, what I loved, I guess love hated was some of the quotes from some of the men in the book that were like, I never thought I could get girls like this. I couldn't date girls this hot and this successful in high school or in college or wherever they went to college. But like, we'll take New York, but apply it to all the other cities and all the other college campuses and all the other places that have an oversupply of women. And it's just so fascinating because you put the math and science behind why men act like this. And it's the questions that women have been asking themselves for ages. And what we talk about is like, how can men, boys, guys act like this? And why are there so many incredible women? And that's the coolest part about the book is because while it's a little bit depressing, it's so validating.
This question that you guys know and everybody who lives in a big city knows, like, why is it there are so many fabulous women who can't find a decent guy? And it's like accepted, well, that's just the way life is. That's just the way it is. There's no explanation, and I was kind of, eager to figure out the why part. And I feel like, so many of these women were blaming themselves for their dating problems, and my goal was to make it clear that this is not their fault, that there's kind of bigger issues going on here, and they, in terms of the guys, like I don't think guys or women are going around doing a head count and saying, well, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 of you and 1, 2 of me. I'm now going to behave differently. I think it's like more of a when in Rome, do as the Romans thing.
Yeah, I don't know that people like stop to think about the actual numbers. I just think that a lot of men know in these larger cities or in college campuses where they're grossly outnumbered. And you use this example in the book that they have a slew of women in their phone. If somebody says no, there's 5 other backup women.
Yep.
And I don't personally, as a woman in my 30s in New York City, I don't have that. I don't have a backup of 5 men or women, if 5 men if one says no. So, and you attribute that to, less men going to college. You attribute that to more men going into blue collar fields and being able to make a living in a way. You talk about the birth control pill and all kinds of things, but there truly is an undersupply of men that are worthy of these women.
I will say, the guys don't think that they're taking advantage of a gender ratio. They think they're special. And there's something about, maybe, their wardrobe's gotten a little better since they were 18, or their weekend gym routine, or maybe they're a lot funnier now than they were when they were 21. Like they think it's them. And they think... Well,
I don't know. I might jump in here and just disagree a little bit, just because I think the smart men realize it. And I know you said it in the book that so many guys they told their friends, like, "Guy, you got to come to me. You got to move to me in New York City. There's so many girls here." Like, I think that I've heard guy friends say, like, we know we can walk down the street and we can see all these women coming from the workout classes, and you have 10 beautiful women for every attractive, tall man with a job. And so I think they started to catch on, and they were like, guys, this is the place to be. And they did exploit it.
But I don't think they know till they experience it. I think that's my point. Like they experience, they experience it, and it's like, okay, this is interesting. So I think you're right. Particularly the guys who never get married, or at least like the guy who's never married at 39, who is not bad looking and works for Goldman Sachs or whatever. Like he knows it, and his behavior shows it. But I do think there are guys who kind of just think they're lucky, or kind of they think it's about them and that they're in high demand, and there's something about them where they think they deserve all the attention.
Which I would say, you tell me I would say makes their behavior even worse if they think that they're like, they really deserve this shit. I think if men were aware that like this was an anomaly, they might appreciate it a little more.
Yeah.
But if men were like, my dick is just, it's golden.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think one of the guys at Sarah Lawrence actually said, I think he said, he described the phenomenon there as golden penis syndrome. Which they all felt like they were really, really special.
Something I am so excited to discuss that you talked about in the book, and that is when women in their 30s and their 40s and even late 20s, they're like at the top of their game, they're attractive, they're successful, and then the guys aren't up to par. Like, it was pretty blunt. You were like, they're kind of undateable losers, like.
Well, either they're that, or they've gotten so used to, either like on paper they're awesome, like they're good looking and wealthy, and they can crack a good joke and they're good company, but they're just so used to this kind of never ending supply of women who are interested in them that even if they're not kind of undateable in the way you're talking about, they may be undateable anyway.
Emotional.
But I think you also said like there are also just some like losers with no jobs, it's such a stark contrast to women that are single, have never married,
No, I just, again, the reason I wrote the book is that my wife and I know all these like amazing women in their 30s and 40s who wanted to get married, and it just was confusing to us, like why it was so hard for them. And I got married in my mid-20s, so I was a little this was more of like a curiosity than something I lived.
Okay. And you see that, like, you know, this, and you tell me, like, what are you seeing about the percentage of men that are the quote unquote decent men with decent jobs, nice guys that have a healthy attachment style? You know, are they getting off the market a lot sooner so that the people that are actually left in the dating pool, like you said, in their late 30s?
I actually do think kind of the younger men are less jaded and less affected by this. In my new book, Make Your Move, one of the pieces of advice I have for women is to date younger men, because like if you're 33, a 28-year-old might not be as jaded and as affected by all this. And there's some research on this. The guys are more into older women than you'd think. And also, I think another thing I discuss in Make Your Move is that one of the problems that so many successful, have everything going for them women experience is guys who are kind of put off or intimidated by their success. And the women I interviewed who were dating younger men, one of the things they talked about is that the guys weren't competitive with them in the same way. And that there was a little bit more of a kind of an acceptance. Well, she's 4 years older than me. Of course, she's going to be more successful. And it was like the age gap kind of took the edge off men's proclivity to be competing all the time.
I love that you said that. And this is all stuff we've talked about. I dated younger, 5 to 10 years younger, the whole last 3 years or so. And we've mentioned that, guys that are 10 years younger, 8 years younger than me, and they work in some similar field are 0% competitive with me. And it just kind of works. And also, we feel like they're not as jaded because we think like a 35 plus year old man in New York City that's been single for a long time is fucked up. And so but it's still it's tough because there's issues with I don't know. We don't need to go down this road, but it's funny because you're kind of validating all the stuff that we've said. We used to really recommend younger men.
Obviously, my advice is more macro than micro. So I'm not going to tell any individual person that they have to date a younger guy or an older guy. I'm just talking generally.
I see what you're saying, that as they get older, they just get more accustomed to this. Women are disposable. I can fuck anything. If you're not around, 5 other people are. And, Ashley and I do want to date somebody in the same phase of life as us, but we totally agree with you. If you're 5 years older than a man, you're more successful than them. It's like, well, I'm supposed to be more successful than you. I'm 5 years older than you.
In Make Your Move, there are lots of these really fun stories that illustrate the points I'm making. And in the chapter on dating younger men, there's a couple. I think right now she's probably 34 and he's maybe 28. That's
a good difference.
Yeah, and when they met, they didn't know. I mean, it wasn't apparent to either of them that there was an age gap. And for him, it didn't matter at all. For her, it was a little bit of well, when I'm 40, is he going to think I look old? That kind of thing. But they're actually married with a kid right now. And one of the things that he told me early on was that when he was dating women his age, he would get he's in the art world and he would get super competitive he'd be dating people in his business and he'd get all pissed off when one of these women kind of outshined him in some way. Or there was one story where he did he did his girlfriend a favor and this turned into this gig that he'd been angling for weeks. And he was just really, it kind of tanked the relationship because he was so upset that she got ahead of him essentially. And he told me that with his now wife, this was never an issue, just because, of course, he's at a little bit different stage than his wife, who's 5, 6 years older.
Yeah, and I think 5, 6 years is great. I was just doing 8 to 10.
Yeah,
and it was just not, it wasn't. I had some disappointments.
Yeah,
so.
I just want to, before we move on too far, I want to back up and wrap up something we were talking about before, which is that there's all these women that have reached the age, let's say 35, and they can't find a man, and they're the dating pool is smaller. And what are you seeing that do in terms of the behavior of women? Are they abandoning their desire to get married? Are they all just dating younger? What are you seeing?
Or are they moving?
Yeah, are they moving? How are you seeing this affect women once they sort of realize, this feels like it's not me? What's going on here?
I mean, one of the pieces of advice I did have on Date-Onomics was this idea of moving. That okay, you're stuck in a rut in Washington, D.C. or New York or Miami, maybe move to Denver or Seattle or San Jose, where the marriage market or the dating market is more balanced. But the thing is, I actually think that works better for the younger woman who's just starting out. I'm kicking myself for this idea of like suggesting to a 40-year-old woman in Washington, D.C., who has a whole life and set of friends and a career, the idea that I'm going to tell her to move to Denver just because the sex ratios are better. I just think more women are staying single, and you see this in the numbers. I mean, I have my own ideas about what people can do to beat the odds, and I'm a big fan of, and this is something I talk about in Make Your Move, of kind of unchecking the college box, so to speak, when you're dating, and be open-minded about dating people who didn't go to college. I coach Little League Baseball. I coach with and against all these, working class guys. I mean, they're contractors, cops, firemen, electricians, and I can tell you they're like great guys and terrific dads, and they probably make way more money than you think they do. I mean, my plumber, given how much I paid him last year, I guarantee he makes more money than I do.
I think we should abandon this notion that we all need to move to New York City and date the Wall Street guy. That guy is not going to be a nice guy to you. Maybe some of them are. I don't know. My brother's one of those guys, and he's a wonderful person. But I like this idea that women are sort of abandoning this idea that they have to be with that guy.
Yeah, I agree. And also that guy, if he doesn't work for Goldman Sachs, if he he's like me, he works in media or something like that, he might have $100,000 in college debt.
They don't have students, they don't have the college debt.
The plumber, the electrician is probably also, maybe he's pulling in six figures if he lives in a suburb like where I live, and where, we're desperate to get, our lighting fixtures fixed no matter what the cost. But he, those guys don't have college debt. They also don't take their work home with them the way I do, and maybe you guys do. So at the end of the day, they're kind of free and easy, and they're probably less stressed out and maybe better company than the guy on Wall Street who's worried about tomorrow's trade.
Yeah. But are women changing? I mean, maybe you don't know the answer to this, but are women changing their standards, or are they abandoning theirs? Are they just deciding, I don't need this stuff? I have girlfriends. I got a good life.
I mean, this isn't going to change overnight. But if you look at the demographic data, at the census data, there are more women married to lesser educated men than there are men married to lesser educated women. So the world is changing slowly but surely, and the percentage of women who are primary breadwinners in their family is increasing. I mean, I'm in my own family. I'm not a stay-at-home dad, but I am the lead parent. I mean, my wife has a very high pressure, very high profile job, and we, after a while, we got sick of the daily negotiation of who had to be home in time to relieve the nanny. So it fell to me, and I started writing books instead of working for Fortune. So I feel like the world is changing, and I do think people are kind of more open-minded about all this stuff than maybe they were 10, 20 years ago.
Well, and I think Rayna and I can answer that question for women and for ourselves. I mean, we're women in our mid-30s. We live in New York. We've been single for a while. We have focused on our career and our friends and our travel and building this life for ourselves. And I think that we can answer that question without looking at even stats based on what we see with our friend group. And one thing that really spoke to me in the book that I found was so fascinating was what the gender that is in the oversupply, what they kind of do when they, I guess, quote unquote, realize it, and with women, it almost kind of attributed it to this rise of feminism and women kind of realizing I am single, I need to take care of myself, and women become more successful. They build these great lives for themselves. And what you talked about with men was men, when they realize there's too many men, they start to compete and make more money. So the gender that's kind of in the oversupply can rise to the top, I guess, in terms of their fulfillment as a single person. So I mean, I said that before. I think I was 27 and I thought I was going to maybe marry this guy and it didn't work out. And I worked at this job I hated. And I was like, this is dumb. I'm destined for more. I want to build a better life for myself. And I went out my own freelance writing and it all kind of, brought me to where I am today. So I think that I just loved reading that part of the book of like, not that, maybe we have this light bulb moment or maybe we just realize it over time. But I think that the answer is like what Rayna and I have done, like where we're like, and then we kind of like turned the topic into a career and talking about dating. But I love that, women it's not like I'm settling for a life I don't want. It's kind of like there's more than one way to be happy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to like pretend that I came up with this idea that there's this tie-in between prevailing sex ratios and kind of a rise in feminism. There was a Harvard psychologist, Marcia Gutentag, who wrote about this a long time, in the 1970s, and she actually died before her book came out. And I kind of feel like that's why these ideas didn't really I'm an author and I know how important it is to go out on the road and promote your book. And if you pass away before your book comes out, it kind of gets lost a little bit. So I just want to give her credit for being the first to talk about this. But she, one of her arguments is that the rise of feminism in the 60s and 70s was a direct byproduct of lopsided sex ratios. There were more of the younger women than there were of the older men, and her argument was that the sexual revolution of the 60s and 70s was a byproduct of this imbalance, and the backlash to this imbalance was the feminist movement. And I firmly believe if Marcia Gutentag was alive today, she would be attributing the rise of the Me Too movement to what we've been talking about, this kind of phenomenon of men exploiting the college gender gap.
Did you say the name of the book, by the way?
Of Marcia Gutentag's book? The title of the book is Too Many Women.
Too Many Women. Okay, yeah. I knew we read it, but I couldn't remember the name of the book.
I mean, it's a brilliant title.
Yeah. And I like that you explore other social factors like the birth control pill and things like that, giving women different options and sort of changing the game.
Yeah. So can I do an overly forced segue into my ideas on how women can beat the odds?
Yeah, we want to hear. Yes, please.
Okay. So the new book, Make Your Move, is kind of picks up where Date-Onomics left off, and it's really all about solutions and strategies for beating a dating market that is really stacked against women, and kind of like my core argument in Make Your Move is that we've kind of come to a point in time where, women are kicking ass in education, sports, business, podcasts, politics, whatever. This notion that we're going to tell women that they can be badasses and everything else, but they have to sit back and wait for a guy to ask them out or make a first move when it comes to dating, it doesn't really make any sense. And, I'm a big theme of Make Your Move is kind of encouraging women to make the first move and convincing readers that this notion that men all live for the chase and we love having our advances rebuffed, and if a woman shows too much interest in us, we'll be less interested in them. This is basically nonsense. And men like women who like them. There are all these kind of really wonderful stories I tell in the book, and it's kind of grounded in the latest research on dating and how human beings connect socially. All these great stories of women who made the first moves with guys. The guys frequently had no fucking clue that the women had any interest in them whatsoever, because as you know, guys are morons, and we like
especially those young guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, also like all your shoe dangles and hair flips, like we have no idea what that means. So, right. Guys don't know when women are flirting with them, which is why women who make a more direct first move have such an advantage over women who kind of wait to be courted.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I would rather, and we've talked about this recently, I'd rather make my intentions known with somebody and get rejected than sit around and hope that somebody will come around. And I've been rejected recently. I've been rejected my whole life by plenty of men. I've rejected plenty of men, but I'm never sorry that I did it, because the alternative is what? Wait around.
Yeah, no, I listened to your New Year's podcast, and Rayna, you were talking about like how 2020 was the year to like take your shot, shoot your shot, and you had the story about the guy who you thought like there might be something real there, and it didn't work out. But the good news is you're not going to be like kicking yourself for the next year or 20 years about, oh crap, what if I had said something to him? And I mean, the advantage that men always have, or traditionally have had, is that look, we may get shot down, but at least we have a chance with our first choice. If you're dating the old-fashioned way and you're kind of acting as a passive filter of male advances rather than saying, you know what? The guys who like me, I don't like them, but there is this guy over there who probably has no clue I like him. I'm just going to ask him out. In my experience, doing the research for the book and doing a little bit of early press for the book, I find that like if I ask women, okay, is there some guy in your daily life or your universe who you've ever wondered about dating? I mean, not everybody says yes, but a lot of them do. And I'm like, well, why would you waste time with some complete stranger on Tinder if there's actually a guy who you've wondered about in real life, who you have real life experiences with, and you already feel comfortable with? Why not just ask him out?
I love that. And I don't know that you really want the guy that you need to act like you hate him, because that guy's probably a little self-loathing and probably not super stable in the first place. Like stable people like people that like them, like it's kind of like the act of, I need to really play hard to get and act like I'm not interested. Like, I don't know if that's even attracting the right energy anyway. Why not show somebody you like them? Like somebody that hates that you like them is probably not a great person anyway. They're probably hate themselves.
Yeah, so I swear the secret to men is that men like women who like them.
People, right? Like, I like guys who like me.
Right.
Stable people.
You like grandmas who like you too. Like, I mean, it's not just dating. It's like everybody likes people who like them, and people feel more comfortable. Like if you show interest in me, like I'm going to be like more engaged. And there's been this kind of, I mean, like every dating book, every popular dating book that's been written over the past 40 years, from The Rules to Ignore the Guy, Get the Guy, has been kind of built on this premise that's telling young women that the message they have to send to men is not interested means keep trying. And like, honestly, I don't think that was ever super helpful, but in the post-Me Too world, the idea that you're going to tell women to tell men like not interested means keep trying. No. Guys aren't perfect, and we're learning the lessons of Me Too, maybe not as fast as we should, but we are learning. And one of those lessons, and I've talked to dating coaches and matchmakers about this, and they all agree, is that nowadays, if you kind of play hard to get with a guy and seem disinterested, he's going to just assume you want to be left alone.
As he should.
Leave me alone. I don't like you. I think that there's not a one size fits one with dating. I think every person's different, right? And I think that there's a huge difference between playing the game and playing games. You can act cool and just act like you've been here before without fucking with a person. And I don't want a person to fuck with me. I don't find it attractive. I think people with healthy attachment styles don't want that. They don't find it fun. I think you hopefully age out of finding that attractive to begin with. I mean, maybe that was like cute and sexy when I was 22. Right. I don't find it attractive anymore. I mean, Ashley always says I don't like people that don't like me. I don't like people that fuck with me. I don't want it. I don't find it like fun. I don't find it like a good game. I don't want it.
Yeah. And also, I mean, just from a guy perspective, if a guy knows that you like him, there's less of the peacocking, and he's more comfortable because, like, the way guys are wired, they're trying to get you to like them. So, and that leads to a lot of really annoying behavior. But if the guy already knows that you like him, he'll be more relaxed and be more normal.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that you said you were kind of, I think you were getting there, but this is on the book description. It said it's better to choose than to be chosen.
Yeah.
And, we have been driving this home for a while now of why should women build these great lives for themselves and work so hard and choose all these things for themselves and work to get them, but have to sit back and not be in the driver's seat when it comes to a huge part of your life, which is your relationship.
Yeah.
So I just love that quote. But let's talk about this get off the apps thing. Because I think it's funny when in our email correspondence with you, I think you were like, in so many words, like, hey, I really hate apps on my dating. I just want to hear. I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
So I'm trying to be entertaining, and I'm thinking, well, what will they like? So yeah, this is
no. You emailed us back at midnight, which Ashley already loves. She loves somebody's awake and talking to her after hours.
Honestly, the problem is that my dad wakes up at like 2 a.m.
Yeah, John's living with his parents right now.
No, I'm not living with them.
Helping. You're helping.
I know.
Like once a month, my brother and I kind of tag team, and we.
No, we're just teasing. Okay. So anyways, we interrupted you. Give us the whole spiel about dating apps, why you hate them.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna turn it back on you guys a little bit. I'm gonna have a little fun here. Okay. I'm guessing you guys are like best friends. Yes, like you're.
We don't really like each other that much.
But you
yes,
guys are
she's
best
my
friends.
best friend.
You have this relationship that probably everybody around you kind of thinks is really special, right?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they do.
Okay.
We're goals.
Can you imagine going on a best friend app and finding a relationship anything like what you guys have today?
I keep trying to get away from her and I can't. No. No.
I don't even know you guys, but I am 100% sure that your relationship is grounded in person, face-to-face.
100%. Yeah.
Real life experiences, laughing together, drinking together. There's no way that you could kind of replicate that connection by trading carefully worded text messages back and forth to each other, correct?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So why the fuck would you, if you're, I don't assume everybody's looking for a life partner, but if you're using a dating app to find a life partner, why the fuck would you do anything different than what you've done when you got your best friend? Why wouldn't you look for somebody? The human beings evolved as social animals. We bond through shared experiences. I am 100% certain you have shared experiences that are part of your life story, and the retelling and telling of those stories is kind of the mortar for deeper connections between you. Correct? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think people should be looking for similar things when it comes to a romantic partner. And this is why, as I show in the book, there's research that shows that the breakup rate for couples who meet online is significantly higher than for couples who meet at work or as neighbors or in church or at school. And it's no mystery why, because if you actually know the person, I listened to your interview with Nikki Glaser, and her anxiety level over first dates was really sad. I was bothered by it, but part of me, you guys know how she's dating better than I would, but I have to assume she's dating online, and she's meeting guys she's never talked to over the phone, has no prior experience with. She has absolutely no idea who's going to walk through the door. And the thing about, the thing about online dating is that every first date is a blind date with a complete stranger. Now, I'm 100 years older than you, but when I was in my 20s, blind dates with complete strangers were rare. But now it's commonplace. And the thing to remember about blind dates with complete stranger is that everybody who knows that guy, that online first date, everybody who knows him better than you know him.
Yes. Yeah. My only point I don't love online dating. I find it a means to an end. It's just a nice way to meet people. I'm not asking somebody to feel the way that Ashley feels to me in a first or second interaction. I just find it to be a means to an end. No. And I
want to make it clear that I realize not everybody uses a dating app to find a life partner. If you're looking for a hookup or a friend with benefits or even a friend without benefits, there are lots of reasons to use dating apps that have nothing to do with the quest for a husband or a life partner or a spouse. What I'm saying though is that I just have talked to so many women and seen so much research that and I actually think it's gotten worse during COVID times, where the level of unhappiness with online dating is just extraordinary.
Well, and so this is something our listeners know about me. I've gone on so many dates. I've gone on so many first dates, a handful of second dates, and I've never gone on a second date from an app. So even every single time I've even gone on a second date with a guy, it's that we met in some other way. Even if he slid into my DMs. So it's not how I've ever had success in all the years that I've done it. And there's a reason for this. And this is what you're saying. And I just also want to touch on Nikki, because I feel like Nikki even actually validated your point. And her point was that she doesn't really do the apps because of her anxiety, and she would rather pick somebody that she's at least seen on like TV or something, so she has a level of familiarity. And she said how they move, how they talk, like, so she validated it. She was like, I hate this thought of a complete stranger. I want to have seen them on a show or something. And that's why she slides into the DMs of these people who are on Bachelor, which I get, because these guys show up to meet me and I hate their voice, I hate the way they walk. It's like, it's so accurate.
So I remember you talking about the voice thing, and to me, as an old guy, the whole idea of going out on a date with a guy you've never even talked with over the phone just sounds baffling.
I mean, look, I don't do it. I'm not making a case for it. I don't do it.
I mean, I think you guys know this. There's so much you can learn about a human being based just on the intonations in their voice.
The cadence of their voice. Absolutely.
The cadence of their voice.
We should be on
and even better, just being in their physical presence, like the body language.
Absolutely.
There's so much to be learned about other human beings, talking to them, being in their physical presence, and the idea that I'm not blasting you here. I know this is commonplace, but the idea that people would want to go out on a blind date with a complete stranger who they have they've never really interacted with, even on the phone, it just seems strange to me. Now, I know, I'm an old fogey in that way, but obviously there are couples who meet on and have very happy lives, and I'm not dismissing that. I'm just saying it's like this sounds difficult and challenging and not like an efficient way to go about things. And the other thing I'd point out is that you would think, like, if two compatible people meet and they meet on an app, like, the outcome would be the same regardless of whether they met at work or they met on, playing rec soccer together, or something like that. But the research on this shows that actually how we meet can have a big impact on how the relationship moves forward.
Oh, wow.
And if think about, and I'm thinking about this from a woman's perspective, and you can correct me and fact check me here. But most of the women I've interviewed or spoke to have said, look, a first date from an app begins with a crapload of fact checking, just to make sure that he really is Robert the handsome fund manager and not Billy Bob the married ex-con or something like that. And so there's all this online research, and then there's kind of the escape plan. Is that fair? You tell your friends where you're going to be. You have some idea of, if it's not going well, how you're going to get out of the whole thing. Well, if that's your mindset going into the first date, the odds of you falling in love or even in like is pretty low, because there was a woman I interviewed for Make Your Move who described online dating to me as a doubter's game. And I actually thought this was a really interesting turn of phrase, because what she was saying is she had all this experience with guys blatantly lying to her, on dating apps, that she would go into every first date trying to find all the holes in their stories. And as you can imagine, that didn't lead to a whole lot of second dates if you're just, and she's now engaged to a guy who a friend set her up with. And she told me that on her first date with this guy, she didn't even Google the guy. She just knew that her friend would never set her up with a guy who was bad, who was untrustworthy, who was unkind.
And people feel an accountability. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I agree. If you're accountable to other people, you're going to behave differently.
Absolutely.
And in the case of this woman, she was just kind of more inclined to find the positive love. And she said to me that this was like the closest experience to love at first sight she'd ever had. And it was just because of her mindset going into the first date.
Yeah, I totally agree with all this. And this is, I mean, I'm loving that we're talking about the reason why I have never gotten a second date from an app and why it's never worked out, because it's not just random. You know, there's reasoning behind this.
So I'll give you one statistic.
Okay.
The marriage rate for people who meet at work, for couples who meet at work, the marriage rate is something like 25%, which is the highest of anything. And this is the least surprising statistic I read about in Make Your Move, because it makes perfect sense. Because if you've worked with somebody for a year, you know their sense of humor, you know if they're a good guy or a bad guy, you know if they're trustworthy or not trustworthy. You've had shared experiences with them, both fun and not so fun. So by the time you get to the first date, you already know whether you're compatible or not. So it's like, it's no surprise to me that couples who meet at work, and obviously like from television and movies, are all these phenomenal if Jim and Pam on The Office had met on an app, that would have been like the most boring first date.
Oh my gosh, yes, it would have.
Yeah.
And I think the stakes are not as high for an online date, right? You go out on a date with somebody on an online date and they, I don't know, make out with you and never talk to you again. What do they care? They're never going to see you or talk to you again. If you treat your coworker like that, you treat your friend's friend like that,
right.
Then you're actually on the hook for that behavior. And I don't think that everybody just behaves well because like they might work with you or they know somebody who knows somebody, but I think it increases the probability that they will be decent.
Right, but I'm a big believer in this thing called the beautiful mess effect. Have you ever heard this expression before? It's this thing. Basically, it's like something. It's something related to Brene Brown's whole take on daring greatly and taking chances in life. And there's research showing that the people who are willing to take a chance and tell a friend they're in love with them, that it kind of engenders this feeling of warmth and positivity in the person on the receiving end. And what you might perceive as kind of weakness in you is perceived as courage in the other person.
Okay.
And then when you take these kinds of chances, particularly with people that the reaction is almost always better than you expect it's going to be.
I love this. Just like DM that friend.
Tell your friend.
It does. I think John, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't have to be your colleague or even your close friend. It's someone you know. Like, I think that's the bar.
No,
it's just someone you know.
It could be the cute cop that you banter with at the deli
it's just
every
someone
morning.
You know.
It's just somebody you know and you have shared experiences with. And you've again. I so believe that spending time in somebody's physical presence, reading their body language, hearing the inflections in their voices, that's going to tell you so much more than spending 2 weeks trading text messages over Tinder.
Yes. And I love what you also said where you spend like the first hour trying to figure out, are you lying to me? Is this stuff true? Like,
yes, exactly. Yeah. Like, yeah.
And then there's a curfew now. So then you're just like, well, date's over, like it's a pandemic. And now I just figured out you're a real person and now it's last call.
Yeah. So like, I mean, the whole point of Make Your Move is trying to figure out like, how do I make life, or how do we make dating easier for educated women who may be struggling, and getting off the apps is one of the strategies I talk about in the book.
I think it's just, I've never been big on them. It's not my preferred way to date anybody. I don't need to say this for the 15th time, but it's just been harder during the pandemic. So, especially for Rayna's just so good at just walking up to people, and it's harder. There's not as many opportunities.
I don't have people to walk up to anymore.
Yeah. So,
no, I get it. And something I talk about in the book is obviously during COVID times, there are some people who the only kind of dating they're going to want to do is video dating. So, and I understand that. And I don't want to give off the impression that the entire book is negative on online dating. There are actually some niche dating apps that I like a lot and I talk about in the book, but I still have this kind of broader general take that a lot of singles, a lot of women would be better off if they kind of took a break from the apps. And there's a chapter in the book that I call the Make Your Move move offline dating challenge, which is kind of like a step-by-step guide to taking a break from the apps and meeting people in the real world.
I love that. And this was in the book description. It says the first move doesn't have to be a big move. Do you want to elaborate that a little bit? Is it just...
Yeah. So I have here's a story. So there's a young woman I know who, many moons ago used to be our Saturday night babysitter when she was in college, and I was telling her about the book. And just as like a little context and background, I mean, she's definitely attractive, but the big thing about her is that she has this ginormous personality. Like, she's a real cut up, and like my kids loved her. But as you guys know, like, some men are like intimidated by the whole extrovert thing. Yeah. So I was telling her about Make Your Move, and she told me the story about how she ended up with her current boyfriend, and they were at a party together, and they were talking and having a good time, but it was just clear to her that he was a little anxious and wasn't sure if she was just being nice or that kind of thing. So she just blurted out, "Hey, are you going to ask for my number?" and that was how they began. I love it. And he didn't grab his butt or anything like that, or like, all she did is say, "Hey, you're going to ask for my number." And so I know like the rule followers out there say,
"No, we don't want that."
I know, but the idea is that like a woman who makes a first move, it's like she's like chasing the guy, or she's kind of making a fool of herself or something like that, and that guys don't like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about doing something that opens the door wide enough so that my young friend's now boyfriend, felt comfortable walking through.
Sure. Directness with subtlety.
Just showing interest. Yeah. We always say this, you can do these things that are against the rules. We're not rules girls, clearly. That goes without saying. But you can make the first move. You can sleep with somebody the first night, whatever. It's how you act and your level of like security and confidence. I think that like the rules, like now that we know more, were probably developed for like anxious women and avoidant men. I think that like if we're just talking about people that are stable and secure, it's fine if a woman shows interest. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's not that you're standing there telling a guy like, "So I'm really looking to like get married and have kids within the year." But there's nothing wrong with, "Hey, are you gonna ask for my number?" Eye contact, smiling. We had Matthew Hussey on, and he walked us through pre-COVID, right before COVID, how to act when you see that person you're physically attracted to in a bar. And it's not like, "Hey, want to go fuck?"
Yeah. Again, the first move doesn't have to be some big move, but the important thing that I always like try to remind women is that, like, look, you don't have to take my word for it that men like women who like them. There is a crap load of research showing that men want women to make the first move, and that all these kind of ideas that women have about men needing the chase, it's all based on kind of like crap science that was put out there by men, by evolutionary biologists who actually got it wrong, and everything that they've written over the past 20 years is now being proven wrong by female biologists at UCLA and other schools who are showing that this whole notion that women are kind of hardwired to be passive filters of male advances, that is utter bullshit.
Yay, I love to hear it.
And this notion that men are hunters and women were gatherers, like, women hunted. This is wrong. One of the studies that a lot of evolutionary biology, these ideas that are kind of behind the rules, one of the studies that all this is based on, it actually involved fruit flies. Now, this whole notion that you're going to decide how human beings are going to behave based on the mating strategies of fruit flies is pretty stupid. But even then, the original fruit fly study, like there's this professor at UCLA who redid the original study that Robert Trivers, who's like the preeminent evolutionary biologist of his generation, like he based all of his theories about human mating on this fruit fly study. So this woman, Patricia Gowdy at UCLA, redid the initial fruit fly study because all the ideas behind it didn't mesh with her own research. And it turns out that the female fruit flies, when she redid it, advanced towards the male fruit flies just as often.
It's all bullshit.
Like basically, the guy, this guy, who did the study in the 1940s. Essentially, either he was completely incompetent or he made the whole thing up, and a whole generation of evolutionary biologists basically believed it and developed theories around it.
I mean, people are dynamic. There's not one way to get a person, and people evolve. And I mean, if being passive and sitting back and playing this game hasn't worked for you, then why not shoot your shot and try?
The only other thing I'd mention is like my ideas about women, making the first move go beyond dating. Like I'm all in favor of women proposing to men.
Let's not get carried away.
No, actually, there's this great story I tell in the book about Elizabeth Warren.
We've had her on the show.
Did she tell you about how she proposed to her husband?
No, but she proposed to her husband. I know that.
Yeah.
I think I might have read that in your book.
You know who else? I'm telling you, John, we've had on, her name is Katie Storino. She's an incredible entrepreneur, blogger, and her husband took her last name. For real. Like, it's not a joke. Yeah. She calls him Mr. Storino, and it's like, that's his, that's his last name.
I'm all in favor of flexible gender roles. Like I said, my wife is actually she's the chief of the criminal division for the U.S. Attorney's Office here in New York.
She sounds hot.
Go off.
She's really hot. No. I mean, she does things like put Jeffrey Epstein in jail. So,
yay! Oh my God! Yay!
So I just think we all need to be more flexible and open-minded when it comes to this kind of stuff. And there's no rule that says that guys can't be the lead parent, or that women can't be the breadwinner, or that women can't ask men to marry them.
Yeah, don't be a passive participant in your own life. Is what it seems
like.
In
the driver's seat. And then I meant to ask you this. I'm just out of my own curiosity. Have you kept up with kind of the demographics of the gender ratio since 2015? Because I don't know. I feel like maybe New York's gotten a little bit better for women.
I have two answers to this. So one, if you look at the national college data, it's actually gotten a little worse. Like last year, there were 36% more women than men who graduated from college. And I think when I did the original Date-Onomics research, it was 33%. But you're asking more about the post-college stuff. And I have to say that I'm frustrated because of all the many bad things that have happened in Washington over the past few years. I realize the complaint I'm about to make is pretty minor, but the Census Bureau eliminated the American Fact Finder website that I had been using for most of my demographic data. I think it was some kind of a stupid budget cut. So like I don't have an answer to your question about whether the college grad gender ratio is any better or worse in New York than it used to be. And those numbers are out there, but I would have to hire an expert to dig through the raw data, and this wasn't a big part of Make Your Move. So,
But I'd say with the rise of social media and things like that, more people are just finding jobs they don't need a college degree for.
Well, and I think that women have gone out west. I mean, that was part of the book. I had 3 girlfriends all moved to Denver within a year from New York City. They all got boyfriends. I think there was a stat of like
because of my book.
No. Maybe let me ask them. You know what it was? Maybe. But there was this big, I feel like, mass exodus of women moving to Colorado, and I don't know the data, and I'm upset that they changed that for your sake too. But I think that people have taken a little bit of heed, and I do remember my best guy friend moving to New York, 2014. And it was like this insane playground that I feel like he started to notice a little bit less of. And I don't know. I feel like men aren't as much of pieces of shit here as they used to be. I've had a little bit better luck. I've heard about women really taking this into consideration where they move, and like I said, moving out west and things like that. So I would assume it might have shifted a little bit.
Yes, I'll be interested to hear your take on this. But my sense is that Me Too is part of the story of what you're talking about. That some of the behavior I wrote about in Date-Onomics just doesn't fly anymore.
Okay.
Do you agree, or you think that's part of it?
I mean, probably. Yeah. I mean, I would say that men have a healthier fear in them. And I think that, hopefully women are just raising better men. And
yeah, but I think women, like, perhaps it was your book and just other factors, like women started to talk about this. I've noticed over, I guess, probably the last 5 years of this is not the place for us, like really we're moving, or we're going to move somewhere else, and like realizing that it doesn't really, if you really want to find a husband, it doesn't make sense to move to New York and work in fashion necessarily. So I think a lot of this like Sex in the City, move to New York to find love started to be debunked, with the help of resources like your book. And so that's, I think, I totally agree in the Me Too movement and just how men act in general. But I do think that I think the demographics might have shifted a little bit. So anyway, just my take.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that people will want to read your books, will want to see more of your work. So let's tell people where they can find you on Instagram, your website, your books. Give it to all of us.
We're going to read your Instagram. Remember, we're his Instagram.
You're gonna coach me on Instagram. Yeah. So my new book, Make Your Move, is basically available everywhere from, Books A Million, Amazon, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, basically any major bookseller you can buy Make Your Move. The book goes on sale February 2nd, which also happens to be my birthday, which I hope is like I hope it's some positive something.
February is a big month.
It's our favorite month.
Okay.
We love it.
My dog's birthday is the 4th.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our anniversary,
our anniversary
podcast.
I moved to New York.
I grew up thinking Groundhog's Day was like some really important holiday because it's my birthday. But anyway.
But we're huge February fans.
Yeah. Okay. Well, me too.
Can't recommend February.
I love February. It's so much better than March, right?
Yes.
So a book comes out, Make Your Move comes out February 2nd. If you want to find me, you can find me on jonberger.com. Both of my names are spelled oddly. It's a Jon and then BIRGER.com. One thing I do, if any of your listeners are interested, I do these kind of I'll do like a virtual book club Q&A. So if your book club wants to read Make Your Move, I will log on through FaceTime or Zoom or something, and
Can the three of us do that together?
That's so absolutely cool. Yeah.
We should do it.
That's amazing.
Cool thing to do.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
So you can get more information on that on my website.
Okay.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Well, thank you. This is really enlightening. Your book was really phenomenal. I can't wait to get into the next one in February.
And my college age kids will be glad that I didn't embarrass myself or embarrass them.
Great, sweetie.
I didn't have to talk about my sex life or anything.
Do you want to talk about your sex life?
I really don't. But although
Time's up.
He's like, although now that you mention it, my wife and I role play.
From what we know about her, I'm sure she's great and best.
She brings a baton and wears the cop hat.
Yeah,
oh my God.
There's no Amazon position in my house.
My dad listened to last week's episode too, and he goes, I turned it off halfway through the intro. I don't need to hear about you and Ashley's vaginas. And I was like, don't listen then. Yeah. Who told you to be here?
I've heard about them so many times by now. Okay. Well, Jon, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right. Well, guys, hope you enjoyed our chat with Jon.
We love doing it with you. Love doing everything with you guys.
Okay. You know what? All right. Well, and you know where to find us. girlsgottaeatpodcast.com, Girls Gotta Eat Podcast on Instagram, Ash Hess, Rayna.Greenberg on Instagram, girls_gotta eat on Twitter, and youtube.com/girlsgottaeat.
That's it, guys. Have a great week.
Bye.